Welcome back. Lincoln currency. When people first hear about a 1-cent coin, especially one dated 1981, the first thought that usually comes to mind is that it's just a small piece of copper or copper-plated zinc, the kind of coin most people might overlook, leave in a drawer, or drop between couch cushions without a second thought. But in the world of numismatics, the study and collection of coins, even the smallest denomination can carry with it a story so vast and significant that collectors will dedicate their entire lives to searching for the right piece, the right condition, and sometimes even the rarest varieties that can turn a humble penny into an artifact worth millions. The 1981 1-cent coin holds a very special place in that category. While on the surface it may seem like just another penny from the early 1980s, the truth is that this coin represents a turning point in American coinage, a shift in materials, design continuation, and also the beginning of an era when collectors began paying closer attention to details such as mint marks, condition, and era varieties. And among those coins, there exist rare examples, stories of fabled misprints and ultra-rare conditions that are believed to command astronomical sums, with reports and claims of one piece being worth a staggering $103 million in today's collector market. To truly understand the significance of the 1981 penny, we need to step back in history and remember what the 1-cent coin has always represented. The 1-cent coin in the United States is one of the most iconic pieces of circulating money. It's small, yet it carries the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a symbol of freedom, unity, and sacrifice. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth, replacing the Indian head cent. That design decision itself was revolutionary at the time, because before Lincoln, no real person had ever been depicted on an American circulating coin. Putting Lincoln on the cent broke tradition and set the standard for the way American coins would later evolve. And from 1909 all the way through 1981, the Lincoln cent was one of the most produced, most used, and most collected coins in the United States, making every year's issue important in its own way. By 1981, the Lincoln cent had already gone through multiple subtle changes. The obverse still displayed Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Lincoln, his right-facing bust with sharp detail, the word liberty on the left, the motto I in God we trust above his head, and the date 1981 to the right side of the coin. Depending on where it was minted, the coin could also carry a mint mark beneath the date, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no mint mark at all, which meant it came from Philadelphia. The reverse of the 1981 cent featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the wheat ears reverse that had been used from 1909 to 1958. This Lincoln Memorial design, created by Frank Gasparo, showed the majestic neoclassical monument in Washington, D.C., complete with tiny details such as the statue of Lincoln visible between the columns if viewed with magnification. Above the memorial read the words United States of America, with the motto E Pluribus Unum just below, and at the very bottom of the coin, the denomination 1 cent, simple, effective, and one of the most recognizable reverses ever used in American coinage. Now, what made the 1981 cent particularly interesting from a historical perspective is that it was one of the last years the coin was struck primarily in bronze. For decades, since 1962, pennies had been made of a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, which gave them a rich, heavy feel, a reddish-brown coloration that deepened over time, and a tangible sense of value despite only being worth a cent. But by the early 1980s, the price of copper on the world market had risen so much that the raw metal content of the penny was approaching, and sometimes exceeding the face value of the coin itself. In other words, it cost nearly a penny or more just to make a penny, which was unsustainable for the U.S. Mint. As a result, 1982 would become the pivotal year when the composition of the cent was changed to a primarily zinc core with a thin copper plating, dramatically reducing the amount of copper in each coin. That means the 1981 pennies are historically important, because they represent the very last full year of the classic copper cent before the shift. To collectors and historians, this makes the 1981 coin a kind of final chapter in a long story of copper coinage, a swan song for the bronze era of the penny. But of course, what makes the 1981 penny especially fascinating for collectors and investors alike is not just its standard issue, but the incredible variations, conditions, and rare minting errors that turn some examples from pocket change into priceless treasures. While billions of these coins were struck at Philadelphia and Denver for general circulation, and millions more at San Francisco as proofs for collectors, the sheer volume does not mean every coin is the same. Far from it. Tiny differences in the dies, mistakes in striking, unusual mint marks, or superbly preserved conditions can make one coin worth a fortune. And in the collector's market, rarity combined with demand equals value. Some coins that were once passed off without notice have later sold at auction for staggering sums. The story of a coin reportedly valued at $103 million comes from tales of a rare 1981 cent in perfect condition, believed to have unique qualities, possibly connected to experimental minting, extraordinary preservation, or simply being a one-of-a-kind collectible. While such valuations may seem unbelievable to the casual observer, in the world of rare coins, extraordinary numbers are not unheard of. Record-breaking sales in numismatics have often shocked the financial world, as history, rarity, and human fascination collide to elevate a small piece of metal into an artifact of immense cultural and monetary worth. Let's not forget the technical details collectors obsess over. The official weight of a 1981 cent was about 3.11 grams, owing to its primarily copper composition. Its diameter was 19 millimeters, and its thickness was about 1.55 millimeters, standard for Lincoln cents of that era. The edge was plain, without reading. These details may seem mundane to the average person, but for coin experts, they are essential identifiers. If a coin from 1981 weighs significantly less or more, it could indicate a mint error, such as being struck on the wrong planchet. For instance, if a cent was mistakenly struck on a dime or foreign coin blank, its weight would be off, and that could make the coin an extraordinary rarity worth thousands or even millions. The mint marks of 1981 also carry importance. Philadelphia, as usual, produced the most, and those coins carried no mint mark. Denver's coins had AD under the date, and San Francisco's proof coins had an S. But within these, subtle differences exist. For example, 1981 S-proof cents can be classified as Type 1 and Type 2, referring to differences in the style of the S mint mark. Type 1 had a more filled appearance, while Type 2 had a clearer, more defined S. Collectors often prize one over the other, with the Type 2 being rarer and more desirable. Such distinctions may not matter to the average spender, but to a numismatist, they are the difference between a coin being worth a few cents or hundreds of dollars. And then comes the condition. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, with additional levels of precision such as MS-60 through MS-70 for uncirculated coins. Proofs have their own scale. A 1981 cent in circulated condition is, of course, just worth a cent, or perhaps a little more to someone nostalgic. But a 1981 cent in pristine condition, with no scratches, no marks, blazing original red luster, and struck with perfect sharpness, can command far higher prices. High-grade 1981 cents certified by professional grading companies such as PCGS or NGC can be valued at hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on their designation. Add to that any unique errors, and the sky is the limit. That is why collectors hunt tirelessly for that one perfect coin that stands out among the billions. The allure of the 1981 penny also lies in its connection to everyday life. Millions of people handled these coins daily in the early 1980s, whether paying for gas, groceries, or candy bars that cost just a fraction of today's prices. For many, the coin carries nostalgia, a memory of a different time in America. And that emotional connection only adds to the coin's mystique. When collectors or investors pay huge sums for a coin, it isn't only about the metal, it's about the story, the history, and the human attachment to that small object. A 1981 penny in extraordinary condition doesn't just represent money, it represents a piece of history frozen in time. When we start looking deeper into the 1981 1-cent coin, the discussion naturally turns toward mint errors and varieties, because these are the real gems that elevate ordinary coins into treasures. The United States Mint, despite its precision and technological advancement, is still run by human beings and machines that can make mistakes. And when billions of coins are struck, even the smallest of errors will find their way into circulation. For collectors, those mistakes are not imperfections, but rather miracles of chance, accidents that create uniqueness, and that uniqueness creates value. A double die obverse, where the date, or the lettering appears doubled because the die struck twice slightly out of alignment, can take a coin that would otherwise be pocket change and turn it into a prize worth thousands of dollars. In 1981, there are examples of doubled dies, especially noticeable in the motto "I in God We Trust" or in the date itself, where the numbers show clear doubling under magnification. To a collector, spotting one of these is like striking gold. Even within the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, there are known varieties where the columns appear doubled or the lettering United States of America shows doubling. These are the details that make numismatists carefully examine every cent they find, no matter how ordinary it looks at first glance. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin was not aligned properly during minting and only part of the design is visible. The more off-center the strike, the more unusual and valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date is still visible. Then there are broad strikes, where the collar that holds the coin in place during minting fails, causing the coin to spread out larger than normal. Sometimes pennies are struck on the wrong metal planchet altogether, such as a dime blank or even a foreign coin blank, leading to drastically different weights and appearances. A 1981 penny struck on a dime planchet, weighing around 2.3 grams instead of 3.11, would be an extraordinary find. These errors, depending on their rarity, can fetch hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And when word spreads of such rare examples, the market begins to speculate, prices climb, and the legend of the coin grows bigger than the coin itself. This is where the stories of astronomical values come in. The claim of a 1981 penny being worth $103 million might sound like a fantasy, but in reality it reflects the powerful psychology of collecting. When something is both unique and desired, there is no real ceiling to what someone might pay for it. If a collector believes they are holding a one-of-a-kind specimen, perhaps a coin with an experimental strike, or a proof error that was never meant to leave the mint, or simply the finest graded example in existence, the perceived value can soar into unthinkable territory. History has proven this over and over again. In the world of rare coins, the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, a $20 gold coin, was once illegal to own. But one legal example sold for over $18 million in 2021, simply because it was unique, beautiful, and historic. The same applies to pennies. The famous 1943 copper penny, a coin struck in copper when nearly all pennies that year were made of steel due to World War II shortages, has sold for over $1.7 million at auction. If a penny from 1943 can reach that kind of price, why not a penny from 1981 if it had the right qualities, the right error, and the right buyer? In theory, if a billionaire collector wanted to secure ownership of the rarest known 1981 penny, the bidding war could spiral into the tens of millions, even surpassing that fabled $103 million number. Beyond error coins, the grading process itself creates tiers of rarity. Grading is done by professional organizations that evaluate the coin under strict standards, giving it a number grade that defines its quality. For pennies, collectors often chase what is known as full red examples. Copper coins change color over time, darkening into red-brown and eventually brown as oxidation takes hold. A coin that still retains its blazing original red luster, as if it just left the mint yesterday, is extremely rare, especially after decades of circulation. A 1981 penny graded MS67 red, for example, is a condition rarity. Only a handful of such coins exist in the world. That rarity alone drives up the price astronomically. Imagine a collector who has everything but is missing that one 1981 cent in flawless red perfection. They may be willing to pay any price to complete their set. This is the psychology of collecting. Rarity plus desire equals skyrocketing value. The coin's design itself plays into this story. Brenner's portrait of Lincoln is timeless, but by 1981 it had already been in use for 72 years. Generations of Americans had grown up with that same face on their pennies, making it one of the most familiar images in the country. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse had been in circulation for over 20 years, so widely used that people hardly looked at it anymore. And yet, when you stop and study the detail, you realize how intricate and meaningful it is. The memorial, with its columns, its steps, its tiny statue of Lincoln, is a miniature work of art. To hold a 1981 cent in perfect proof condition, with mirrored fields and frosted devices, is to hold a tiny masterpiece in the palm of your hand. Proof coins from 1981, struck at San Francisco, were sold in sets directly to collectors, and they stand apart from regular circulation strikes. They were made with specially polished dies and struck multiple times for sharpness. A flawless 1981 S-Type 2 proof cent, graded PR70 Deep Cameo, can already command very high prices on the market. And again, when you combine such perfection with rarity, the sky is the limit. The market for Lincoln cents is also one of the largest in all of numismatics. There are thousands of dedicated collectors who focus exclusively on Lincoln pennies, building complete sets, chasing every variety, studying every nuance. This vast demand base means that even small differences in rarity can produce big swings in price. A regular 1981 penny in circulated condition might be worth just face value. But an uncirculated example with a dramatic mint error could suddenly be worth thousands. A proof coin with the right mint mark style could be worth hundreds. And if an example comes along that is unique, something no one has ever seen before, the bidding could go into millions. This is why the story of a $103 million penny, while shocking, fits into the broader narrative of how collectibles work. The value is not tied to the face value of the coin, or even the intrinsic value of the metal. It's tied to rarity, history, condition, and above all, the passion of collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of numismatic history. We must also think about the broader historical context of 1981. This was the beginning of the Reagan era in the United States, a time of economic change, shifting global politics, and cultural transformation. Gas prices were fluctuating, inflation was a concern, and Americans were dealing with a world in flux. The penny, such a small coin, was caught up in these broader forces. The rising cost of copper that would lead to the composition change in 1982 was part of a larger global commodities movement. So in a way, the 1981 penny is a symbol of that era, the last of the old before the new, the final moment before the U.S. Mint would fundamentally alter the way pennies were made. Collectors sense this historical significance, and that adds another layer of value beyond the metal and beyond the design. When you hold a 1981 penny, you are holding a piece of that story, a tiny reminder of the economic forces and political realities of the early 1980s. And when you take all of these factors together, the design, the composition, the errors, the grading, the history, and the collector psychology, you begin to see why a simple 1-cent coin could, under the right circumstances, be valued not just at a few dollars or a few $1,000s, but at mind-boggling sums. To the untrained eye, it's just a penny. To the trained collector, it's a treasure chest of possibilities, and the possibilities are what fuel the imagination. That's why the legend of the 1981 penny lives on, and why people continue to search through their change, through old jars of coins, through inherited collections, hoping to stumble upon that one magical piece that could change their lives forever. When people ask how a coin that was originally worth 1 cent could ever be tied to stories of values in the millions, they often forget that the coin market is not just about money, it is about history, rarity, and human obsession. The 1981 cent is particularly fascinating because it stands right on the threshold of change. In 1982, as the mint shifted from the heavier bronze composition to the lighter copper-plated zinc, a clear dividing line was drawn between old and new. The 1981 pennies represent the end of an era, the last full year when every coin was solid copper alloy. That fact alone makes them more desirable. Collectors often see transitional years or the very last issues of a series as more significant, and history shows that such coins almost always carry a premium. It is almost like the difference between the last model year of a classic car and the first of a new generation. The last of the old style is what people hold onto with nostalgia, and that nostalgia turns into value. The copper content of the 1981 penny is another angle that adds fascination. Each coin contained about 3.11 grams of mostly copper, and with billions minted, that added up to massive amounts of the metal locked in the form of small change. When copper prices spiked in the 1970s and early 1980s, some people even hoarded pennies because the melt value was nearly equal to the face value of the coin. Of course, melting down cents for their metal content was and still is illegal, but the fact that the metal itself was almost worth a cent created a buzz around the coin. People began paying closer attention, realizing that these little coins represented more than just spare change. A 1981 cent was not just a piece of money. It was a piece of copper that could one day be worth more than its denomination. This awareness elevated the coin's cultural significance at the time, and that significance has only grown in retrospect. But beyond general circulation, the real treasures are always found in the proof coins. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors, using highly polished dies and planchets, and are often struck more than once to bring out sharp details. In 1981, proof cents were minted in San Francisco, and they are easily recognized by their mirror-like fields and frosted designs. What makes 1981 especially intriguing is that it was the last year before the mint switched from the Type 1S mint mark to the clearer, sharper Type 2. The Type 2 proof cents are scarcer and thus more valuable. Collectors will pay hundreds or even thousands for flawless examples, especially if they are graded PR70 deep cameo. Just imagine holding a 1981's Type 2 proof penny in perfect condition, knowing that only a tiny handful exist in that grade. For a collector, that is like owning a diamond among stones. Even in circulation strikes, 1981 cents carry hidden surprises. Some of the dies used to strike these coins had tiny imperfections, or they wore down in ways that created unusual features on the coins. Die cracks, cuds, and filled letters are all varieties that collectors chase. A die crack might leave a raised line across the coin, almost like a lightning bolt etched into Lincoln's portrait, or across the Lincoln Memorial. A cut occurs when part of the die breaks away, leaving a blank, raised area on the coin where details should have been. Filled letters occur when debris clogs the die, causing certain parts of the inscriptions to appear faint or missing. These may seem like flaws, but to collectors, they are unique identifiers that make one coin different from billions of others. The rarer and more dramatic the flaw, the higher the price. A 1981 cent with a dramatic die break could easily sell for far more than its face value, and in some cases, these oddities have gone into the thousands. Now, when we speak about coins valued at incredible sums like $103 million, we are not simply talking about face value or even melt value. We are talking about the psychology of rarity and the auction process. When a unique coin comes up for auction, it creates a frenzy. Collectors, investors, and even wealthy individuals who may not normally collect coins will compete for ownership of something no one else can have. Each bidder wants to outdo the others, not only for the coin itself but also for the prestige that comes with owning it. This is why record-breaking prices happen. In such an environment, the value of the object is no longer measured by metal or face value, but by the emotional and historical weight it carries. If someone with deep pockets decides they must own the rarest known 1981 penny, they can drive the price to unbelievable heights. And once a coin achieves a legendary sale price, its story spreads like wildfire, inspiring even more collectors to search their own pockets in the hope of finding another. The Lincoln cent also benefits from being perhaps the most widely collected series in the United States. Unlike other coins that may seem distant or obscure, everyone is familiar with the penny. Children often begin their collecting journey with Lincoln cents, filling blue Whitman coin folders with examples from circulation. Because of this, the demand base is enormous, and the more demand there is, the higher the ceiling for price increases on rare examples. It is not just elite numismatists who chase 1981 pennies, it is everyday people, hobbyists, and even treasure hunters. This universal appeal magnifies the importance of any significant rarity within the series. A collector who already owns every other year may still be searching for the perfect 1981, and that drives prices even higher. Another fascinating layer to the 1981 penny story is how technology and grading have changed the way we value coins. In earlier decades, collectors judged coins by eye, relying on personal expertise. Today, third-party grading companies like PCGS and NGC provide standardized, encapsulated grading that certifies a coin's authenticity and condition. These companies often publish population reports, showing exactly how many coins exist at each grade level. For example, if only 3 1981 cents are graded at MS67 red, then those 3 instantly become highly coveted. This level of transparency and data fuels the competition among collectors and investors, because now they know exactly how rare their coin is. The moment a new discovery is made, such as a double die variety that was previously unknown, the market reacts instantly. Coins that were once overlooked become overnight sensations, and values skyrocket. It is in this environment that the legend of a $103 million penny makes sense, because the market is driven as much by perception and psychology as it is by hard data. The narrative of the 1981 penny also ties into the broader tradition of extraordinary coins. Throughout history, humble coins have reached extraordinary values because of rarity and demand. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, for example, sold for over $10 million because it is believed to be the very first silver dollar ever struck by the U.S. Mint. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 exist, has sold for millions on multiple occasions. These examples show that it is not unusual for coins with small face values or humble origins to achieve legendary status. The 1981 penny, being from such a recent era, reminds collectors that treasures are not just buried in ancient history. They can be found in the modern pocket change as well. That possibility is what keeps the hunt alive. Every coin tells a story, and the 1981 penny tells a story of transition, of mistakes that became treasures, of copper's final days in the cent, and of a market that sometimes values passion above all else. The value of this coin is not locked in its denomination, not locked in its weight or composition alone, but in the human desire to find meaning and rarity in something so small. And when that desire reaches its peak, even a penny can become a multimillion-dollar artifact, a symbol of how much value people can place in history, nostalgia, and rarity combined. The process of striking coins at the United States Mint in 1981 is another dimension that deepens the story of the 1-cent piece, because when you understand how these coins were made, you begin to appreciate the small miracles and small mistakes that create rarities. In the early 1980s, coin production was operating on a massive scale. Billions of pennies were needed for commerce every year, and the mint had to run its presses around the clock to keep up with demand. Blanks of the proper metal composition were fed into giant presses, where dies engraved with the obverse and reverse designs came crashing down with immense pressure, striking the design into the blank and turning it into a finished coin. Each coin had to be the exact weight and diameter, and the dies had to be aligned perfectly. But with so many coins being struck, it was inevitable that some would slip through the cracks with misalignments, weak strikes, or even completely wrong planchets. Those are the accidents that, decades later, collectors search for like hidden treasure. What is fascinating about 1981 is that the mint was already preparing for the major shift in 1982, when the composition would change from 95% copper to mostly zinc with a thin copper plating. This meant that experimental strikes and testing may have occurred in 1981, and whenever tests happen, strange coins sometimes slip out into circulation. Imagine a coin that looks exactly like a regular penny but is actually struck on a planchet with the wrong composition, or one that somehow ended up in circulation even though it was never intended to. Such a coin would be an ultimate prize, because it connects directly to the transitional moment in coinage history. For collectors, transitional errors are the holy grail. A 1943 copper penny or a 1944 steel penny are famous examples, and each has sold for over $1 million because they represent mistakes made during a transition year. If a similar transitional error exists for 1981, the value could reach into the stratosphere. Collectors also pay attention to die varieties, and 1981 has a few of its own. One of the most famous is the 1981 S-Type 1 and Type 2 distinction in proof sets, where the shape of the S mint mark differs due to the introduction of a new punch. Type 2 is considered rarer and more valuable, and if found in flawless condition, it can fetch incredible prices. But even in regular circulation coins, doubled dies and repunched mint marks are treasures. A repunched mint mark occurs when the mint mark was hand-punched into the die more than once, leaving behind traces of multiple impressions. In 1981, repunched mint marks are known, and collectors seek them out with enthusiasm. To a casual spender, it is just a tiny imperfection, but to a numismatist, it is a rare variety that can transform a penny into a collectible worth hundreds or thousands. The market itself plays a huge role in building up these values. Coin auctions are dramatic events, often filled with excitement and suspense. A rare coin is placed on the block, and bidders raise their paddles or submit their bids online, pushing the price higher and higher. Each bid represents not just money, but passion, determination, and the desire to own something unique. Sometimes 2 or 3 determined bidders will battle each other, refusing to back down, and in those moments prices can soar far beyond expectations. That is how coins achieve legendary valuations. A 1981 cent in ordinary condition will never do that, but the right coin, with the right story, can. If a 1981 penny with a spectacular error or perfect condition appeared at a high-profile auction, and if wealthy bidders decided it was the one piece they had to have, it is entirely possible for the price to escalate to unimaginable levels. That is the fuel behind the story of a penny worth over $100 million. The psychology of collecting cannot be underestimated. People are not only buying metal, they are buying history, they are buying identity, and they are buying exclusivity. To own something no one else in the world has is an intoxicating idea, and it is why prices can break every barrier of logic. When one coin is certified as the finest known example, the competition to own it becomes a race for prestige. In 1981 cents, there are certain grades and varieties where only one or two coins exist at the very top. That means if you want the absolute best, you must be willing to outbid everyone else. The result is that one penny out of billions becomes a celebrity, while all the others remain forgotten in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. The broader context of Lincoln cents adds yet another layer of richness. For over a century, the Lincoln cent has been part of American life. Children saved them, adults spent them, and everyone has handled them countless times. They are symbols of everyday America, and yet within them lie extraordinary treasures. The wheat cents of 1909 to 1958 carry nostalgia for earlier generations, and the memorial cents from 1959 to 2008 capture the modern era. Within this huge series, every year, every mint, every small era tells part of a greater story. The 1981 penny is not just one more year, it is the bridge between the long copper era and the zinc era that continues to this day. That alone makes it historically important. Even the way these coins age contributes to their story. Copper is a living metal in a sense, reacting to its environment, darkening, spotting, and changing color over time. A coin that has survived for over 40 years in bright, blazing red condition is a miracle of preservation. It means it was never handled, never exposed to the air in a damaging way, perhaps tucked away from the very day it was minted. To a collector, that kind of preservation is awe-inspiring. It is like finding a time capsule from 1981, frozen in perfect condition. That is why the highest graded examples carry such premiums. They are not just coins, they are pristine artifacts, preserved against all odds. When we connect all these elements, the history, the minting process, the errors, the varieties, the preservation, the collector psychology, and the auction drama, the story of the 1981 penny becomes a microcosm of the entire world of numismatics. It teaches us that value is not always tied to size, to metal, or to face value. Value is tied to rarity, to story, to human desire. And in that equation, even a humble penny can reach values beyond comprehension. That is why collectors still check their change, still open old rolls of coins, still sift through jars of pennies passed down from grandparents. Because maybe, just maybe, the next great treasure, the next record-breaking rarity, is waiting to be discovered among them. When we think about the symbolism of the Lincoln cent, especially the 1981 issue, it is important to remember that coins are not just tools of commerce but also miniature monuments. Every detail of the design carries meaning, and those meanings evolve over time. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln is more than just an image of a president, it is a statement about American values, resilience, and leadership during the most divided period of the nation's history. By 1981, Lincoln's face had been on the cent for 72 years, longer than any other design on any circulating American coin. That level of continuity gave the penny a sense of tradition, and tradition is a powerful force in collecting. People see in that portrait not only the leader who preserved the Union, but also a constant presence in their own lives, a coin they had handled since childhood, a familiar companion in pockets and cash registers. That connection is part of why even the smallest details, like the mint mark or the shade of copper, matter so much to collectors. The coin is not just metal, it is memory, and memory has value. The reverse of the 1981 cent, with the Lincoln Memorial, also speaks volumes. The design, created by Frank Gasparo in 1959, was chosen to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. It replaced the wheat ears design that had graced the coin since its first issue in 1909. To many, the memorial design felt modern and patriotic, a fitting tribute to one of America's greatest leaders. If you look closely at a 1981 penny, under magnification you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that most people never notice. This subtle inclusion of Lincoln within Lincoln makes the coin a fascinating piece of artistic symbolism. For collectors, such details enhance the sense of craftsmanship, reminding us that these coins were designed with thought and care, not merely stamped out as pieces of metal. Now imagine holding a proof example of the 1981 cent. The mirror-like fields reflect light like glass, and the frosted devices make Lincoln's profile and the memorial stand out in sharp contrast. In that form, the coin transcends its everyday purpose and becomes a piece of art. Proof coins are often overlooked by casual observers, but to collectors they are the crown jewels of the mint's output. A flawless 1981 S-Type 2 proof cent, graded PR70, is one of the most coveted modern proofs, because it combines rarity, technical perfection, and historical significance as the last of the pre-zinc copper proofs. These proof cents sit at the top of the market, where investors and collectors are willing to pay extraordinary prices for examples that have survived decades without a single flaw. But the real thrill for many comes from the hunt for rare errors in circulation coins. The 1981 penny offers the possibility of doubled dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, and even transitional planchet errors that could be worth a fortune. Imagine finding a penny struck slightly off-center, where Lincoln's portrait is shifted to one side and a blank crescent of metal shows on the edge. To most people it would look odd, but to an experienced collector it might be worth hundreds of dollars. Or picture finding a penny where the D mint mark has been punched more than once, leaving a ghostly shadow beneath it. That tiny detail could transform the coin from pocket change into a prized collectible. These stories fuel the dreams of treasure hunters everywhere, and they explain why people still search through jars of pennies and rolls of coins at the bank. The possibility of discovering something extraordinary keeps the passion alive. We must also consider how the 1981 cent fits into the larger landscape of global coinage. Around the world, coins of small denominations often become iconic symbols of their nations. In Canada, the cent with its maple leaf became beloved until it was discontinued. In the United Kingdom, the penny evolved with the shift to decimalization. In every case, these small coins represent both history and identity. The American penny, with Lincoln on one side and the memorial on the other, has achieved an almost mythic status in this regard. It is not only a coin but also a cultural artifact recognized around the world. That recognition only increases its collectible power. A 1981 penny is not just another coin from the past. It is a global symbol of America in the early 1980s, preserved in copper for future generations. Auction records show just how powerful this symbolism can be. Time and again, coins with humble face values have shattered expectations at major auctions. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel sold for millions. The 1804 silver dollar, known as the King of American Coins, has fetched astronomical sums. And every time a record is broken, it pushes the boundaries of what collectors believe is possible. The 1981 penny sits within that same market environment, where passion and wealth collide to create legendary prices. The story of a penny being worth $103 million might seem exaggerated, but it is a reflection of the truth that when rarity meets desire, the sky is the limit. If a unique 1981 cent were discovered with qualities no other coin possesses, the bidding war could indeed drive the price into territory that makes headlines around the world. Another layer to the story is the human element of collecting itself. People do not collect coins simply because they are valuable. They collect them because they connect to stories, to memories, to history. A person who grew up in the early 1980s might look at a 1981 penny and remember buying candy, paying for gas, or saving change in a piggy bank. Those memories create emotional attachment, and that attachment can make a coin priceless to the right person. This is why the coin market is not just about numbers, it is about human passion. That passion fuels the search, the bidding, and ultimately the extraordinary values that coins can achieve. As we continue to explore the 1981 cent, it becomes clear that its story is not just about metal and minting. It is about history, art, mistakes, perfection, nostalgia, and desire. Each coin tells a story, and the 1981 penny tells the story of an ending and a beginning, the last of the old copper cents and the threshold of a new era. It tells the story of collectors who search tirelessly for the rare varieties, of investors who see value where others see only pocket change, and of a market where even the smallest coin can achieve the largest price. This is why the penny remains one of the most beloved and fascinating coins in American history, and why the 1981 cent will always hold a special place in the world of numismatics. When the 1981 cent is studied in the context of modern coin grading, it reveals another layer of intrigue that most people never consider. Before the 1980s, coin grading was largely subjective. Collectors relied on their own judgment, or the reputation of dealers to determine the quality of a coin. This meant that disagreements were common, and values could fluctuate wildly based on opinion. But as the coin market grew, especially during the 1980s boom in collectibles, there was a growing need for standardized, professional grading that could provide consistency and trust. This led to the rise of third-party grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, known as NGC. These companies revolutionized the market by providing certified grades encapsulated in tamper-evident holders, giving both collectors and investors confidence in what they were buying. For the 1981 penny, this shift was monumental. Suddenly, the difference between an uncirculated coin and a gem-quality mint-state coin was no longer subjective. It was backed by a professional opinion that carried weight in the marketplace. A coin graded MS-67 red, for instance, was now an elite rarity, with documented population reports showing how few examples existed at that level. Collectors chasing registry sets, competitive collections where individuals tried to assemble the finest sets of coins by grade, drove demand even higher. This meant that certain 1981 cents, which may have been overlooked in the past, suddenly became highly desirable because they ranked at the very top of the grading scale. The certification era transformed the humble penny into a commodity that could be traded, invested in, and tracked with precision. Technology has also played a huge role in deepening the fascination with coins like the 1981 cent. High-resolution photography, digital microscopes, and online auction platforms have made it easier than ever to study, share, and acquire coins. Collectors can now zoom in to see every detail of a coin's surface, identifying tiny doubling on the letters or faint repunched mint marks that might not have been visible to the naked eye decades ago. Online forums and communities spread knowledge at lightning speed, meaning that if a new error or variety is discovered, the entire collecting world can learn about it in hours. This democratization of information has fueled excitement about coins like the 1981 cent, because every collector knows there could still be undiscovered treasures waiting to be found. Consider the way discoveries happen. Often, someone going through a roll of pennies from the bank, or a jar inherited from a relative, will stumble upon something unusual. It might be an off-center strike, a double die, or even a coin with unusual coloration. The excitement of discovery is one of the greatest thrills in collecting, and it is what keeps people searching year after year. With billions of 1981 pennies struck, the odds of finding something unique are always present, and that possibility adds a layer of adventure to the hobby. Stories abound of collectors who found rare coins in the most ordinary of places, in pocket change, in cash registers, even in parking lots. The idea that a coin worth thousands or even millions could be sitting unnoticed in a coffee can of pennies is irresistible, and it is one of the reasons the 1981 cent continues to capture imaginations. The year 1981 itself adds historical flavor to the coin's story. America was entering a new political and economic era under President Ronald Reagan. Inflation and high interest rates were challenging the economy, and the government was searching for ways to cut costs. The rising price of copper put pressure on the mint, leading to the decision to change the penny's composition in 1982. This makes the 1981 penny a symbol of that transitional moment in American economic history. It is not just a coin, it is a snapshot of a time when the smallest details of commerce reflected larger national issues. Holding a 1981 cent is like holding a piece of that economic story, a reminder of how even the tiniest unit of currency can be tied to global markets and government policy. Collectors often compare the 1981 cent to other famous transitional coins to highlight its importance. The 1943 copper penny, accidentally struck during a year when pennies were supposed to be made of zinc-coated steel for the war effort, is one of the most legendary era coins in American history. It has sold for over $1 million, despite being just a penny. The 1944 steel penny, another transitional era, has also fetched huge sums. These examples prove that pennies from transitional periods can achieve legendary status. The 1981 cent, being the last full copper year before the shift to zinc, sits in that same category of importance. While no confirmed transitional errors between 1981 and 1982 have reached the fame of the 1943 copper, the possibility keeps collectors searching. The mere idea that such a coin could exist drives fascination, and fascination drives value. At the same time, the everyday presence of the penny gives it a democratic quality that few other collectibles possess. Unlike rare gold coins or ancient artifacts, pennies are accessible to everyone. Anyone can check their pocket change or sift through a jar of coins at home. This accessibility makes the 1981 cent not just a coin for elite collectors but a coin for the people. That broad base of interest creates an enormous market, where millions of collectors compete for the finest examples, the rarest varieties, and the most dramatic errors. The result is a market dynamic unlike any other, where even the humblest of coins can rise to incredible heights in value. In thinking about the story of the 1981 penny, one cannot ignore the role of imagination. Every collector imagines the possibility of finding something extraordinary. That imagination is what keeps the market alive, what keeps people searching, and what transforms ordinary coins into legendary treasures. A penny is more than just metal, it is a canvas for human imagination, history, and desire. And when those forces combine, the value of a coin is no longer measured in cents or dollars but in dreams. When people talk about the incredible value of certain coins, the conversation often drifts toward the stories of ordinary individuals who stumbled upon life-changing discoveries. The world of numismatics is full of tales where someone with little knowledge of coins happened to find a rarity in a pocket of change, an inherited collection, or even on the ground. These stories matter when discussing the 1981 penny, because they show that what appears ordinary can in fact hide immense potential. The allure of the 1981 cent lies in the idea that one coin, indistinguishable to the untrained eye, could actually be a hidden treasure worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions. This is why coin roll hunting, the practice of searching through rolls of coins from banks or circulation, remains so popular among collectors of all ages. Each roll is a mystery, and inside that mystery may lie a piece of history. Some collectors recall sitting with jars of pennies on a kitchen table, sorting through handfuls late into the night, carefully examining dates and mint marks under a magnifying glass. For many, the thrill is not just in the potential financial reward but in the quiet satisfaction of discovery. The 1981 cent, with its reputation as the last full copper penny and the potential for errors or rare proof types, is often one of the most exciting finds. Imagine a young collector pulling a bright, uncirculated 1981 penny from a pile of worn coins, the sharpness of its design catching the light. That moment becomes a spark, igniting a lifelong passion. In this way, the 1981 penny has played a part in inspiring countless new numismatists. On the other side of the spectrum, there are seasoned investors and wealthy collectors who pursue the very finest examples of the 1981 cent. These individuals compete at auction for coins graded at the highest levels, often paying sums that shock those outside the hobby. To them, it is not simply about owning a penny, it is about owning perfection, rarity, and prestige. When a 1981 S-Type 2 proof penny graded PR70 Deep Cameo comes to market, the competition is fierce. Collectors know how few exist, and they understand that the price is not just for the coin itself but for the status of owning one of the finest known examples. This duality, a coin accessible to children searching through change, yet also pursued by millionaires at auction, is part of what makes the penny such a unique cultural artifact. As the legend of the 1981 penny grows, so too does the myth of its potential value. Stories circulate about coins selling for millions, about collectors paying astronomical sums, and about everyday people finding a penny worth more than a mansion. These stories often stretch the truth, but they capture the imagination of the public. A figure like $103 million may seem fantastical, but it embodies the dream of every collector, that somewhere out there is a coin so unique, so rare, and so coveted that it could command a price beyond comprehension. Whether or not such a coin truly exists in the case of the 1981 penny almost doesn't matter. What matters is the dream itself, and the dream keeps collectors searching. It is also worth remembering that coins carry emotional as well as monetary value. Families pass them down as heirlooms, connecting generations. A grandfather might give his grandchild a handful of old pennies, sparking curiosity about history and value. The 1981 cent, being relatively recent yet historically significant, often turns up in these collections. For the child who receives it, that coin becomes a symbol of connection, a piece of both family and national history. Years later, when that child has grown, the memory of that coin may still linger, encouraging them to re-enter the hobby and perhaps discover its deeper value. In this way, the 1981 penny plays a quiet but meaningful role in preserving the culture of collecting. The economics of the penny also add depth to its story. By the early 1980s, the cost of copper had risen so high that the metal content of a penny was approaching, or even exceeding its face value. This meant that each penny carried more intrinsic worth than the denomination printed on it. While it is illegal to melt down pennies for their copper, the knowledge that a coin contained valuable metal changed the way people viewed them. Suddenly, jars of pennies became not just loose change but a kind of hidden savings account. The 1981 cent, being made of nearly pure copper, holds a special place in this narrative. Even today, collectors and investors recognize its intrinsic metal value, setting it apart from the zinc pennies that followed. What makes the coin market particularly fascinating is that value is determined by more than just rarity or metal. It is determined by story, by demand, and by emotion. The 1981 penny has all three. It has the story of being the last of its kind before a major transition. It has the demand of collectors who seek copper cents, proof types, and rare varieties. And it has the emotion of nostalgia, history, and the dream of hidden fortune. This combination is what drives coins into the realm of extraordinary value, and it is why the 1981 cent continues to attract attention even decades after its release. The truth is that every coin has two values, the one stamped on its face and the one carried in the hearts of those who treasure it. For the 1981 penny, the stamped value is 1 cent, but the treasured value can be immeasurable. That is why stories of massive prices resonate so deeply. They remind us that worth is not fixed, it is shaped by history, by passion, and by possibility. The market may assign a dollar amount, whether thousands, millions, or even more, but the real worth lies in the journey of discovery and the connections coins create. The world of high-profile coin auctions adds yet another layer of fascination to the story of the 1981 penny. For most people, the idea of a penny being sold under the bright lights of an international auction house seems absurd. Yet time and again, coins of humble denominations have shocked the world with record-breaking prices. When a rare or unique variety appears on the auction block, collectors and investors gather with intense anticipation. Each bid is more than just a number, it is a declaration of passion, status, and belief in the enduring value of history. In these moments, the coin ceases to be a mere object and becomes the centerpiece of a dramatic contest, a stage upon which desire and wealth collide. For the 1981 cent, auctions can showcase the extremes of the market. A superbly preserved proof with perfect deep cameo contrast can spark bidding wars among top registry collectors. A unique mint error, such as a double strike or a transitional planchet piece, can attract worldwide attention. Each new discovery adds fuel to the fire of speculation, reminding the community that the next headline-grabbing coin could emerge from an old roll, a forgotten collection, or even a pocket of change. The spectacle of auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers lends legitimacy and grandeur to these events, elevating coins like the 1981 cent into the realm of fine art and historical treasure. The psychology of these bidding wars is just as intriguing as the coins themselves. Collectors are not only competing for ownership, they are competing for legacy. To win a unique or top-rated coin is to etch one's name into the history of numismatics. That drive can push prices into unimaginable territory, where rational calculation gives way to emotional determination. The rush of adrenaline in those final seconds, as 2 or 3 bidders push the price higher and higher, is what creates the legendary values that capture public imagination. A penny that once jingled unnoticed in a pocket can become the star of a bidding war worth millions, its story amplified with every passing bid. In the modern age, social media has magnified these stories like never before. Platforms dedicated to numismatics share discoveries instantly, spreading images of rare varieties, dramatic errors, and record prices across the globe. Videos of ordinary people finding valuable coins and change attract millions of views, fueling dreams among viewers that they too might stumble upon a fortune hidden in their wallets. The 1981 penny has benefited greatly from this exposure, with countless posts and videos speculating about its value, showcasing unusual examples, and encouraging treasure hunts. What once might have been an obscure hobby confined to collectors' clubs and newsletters is now a global conversation happening in real time. This democratization of information has created a feedback loop of excitement. The more people hear about valuable coins, the more they search. The more they search, the more discoveries are made. The more discoveries are made, the more stories spread. The 1981 cent thrives in this environment, where each new mention renews its mystique and its perceived potential. Even myths and exaggerations, such as stories of coins worth $103 million, serve to fuel the fascination. While the literal figure may not reflect actual sales, the myth becomes part of the coin's legend, and legends often have a power greater than truth itself in shaping markets and inspiring collectors. Another fascinating aspect of this cultural phenomenon is the way it bridges generations. Younger collectors, who may first encounter the 1981 penny through social media or online videos, often find themselves connecting with older collectors who remember using the coin in daily life. This generational overlap strengthens the hobby and ensures its continuity. The 1981 cent thus becomes more than just a collectible. It becomes a point of conversation, a bridge across time that connects people of different ages and experiences through a shared fascination. It is also important to consider the role of scarcity within abundance. With billions of 1981 pennies struck, it seems counterintuitive that any could be worth a fortune. Yet it is precisely within that ocean of common coins that rarity emerges. A single doubled die, a single off-metal strike, a single flawless proof can transform an ocean into a treasure hunt. This paradox, that extraordinary value can be hidden among billions of ordinary pieces, lies at the heart of why the 1981 cent continues to captivate. Every person holding a penny from that year is holding the possibility, however small, of holding something extraordinary. That possibility is enough to sustain an entire ecosystem of collectors, dealers, graders, and dreamers. The transformation of the penny from everyday object to coveted collectible is a reminder of how value is constructed. It is not the coin itself that dictates worth, but the meaning people assign to it. In the case of the 1981 cent, meaning comes from history, from rarity, from artistry, from myth, and from the human desire to discover something special. This is why, despite its humble face value, the coin can command such powerful attention. And it is why, in the world of collecting, the smallest treasures can become the largest legends. The cultural symbolism of the penny has always been far greater than its 1 cent value, and the 1981 issue carries that symbolism forward into a particularly meaningful moment in American life. Pennies have often been tied to luck, with the old saying, "Find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck," repeated for generations. Because pennies are small, easy to overlook, and often discarded, they have become symbols of the unexpected rewards life can offer if one pays attention. The 1981 penny, produced at the dawn of a decade filled with dramatic economic and cultural change, embodies that sense of humble yet powerful possibility. Each one is a reminder that even the smallest things can carry hidden significance. Collectors who grew up in the 1980s often recall a time when pennies still held purchasing power. A single coin could buy a piece of candy from a store, or several could be exchanged for a soda at a vending machine. Holding a 1981 penny brings those memories back to life. For many, this nostalgia is as valuable as the metal itself, because coins are time machines. They carry us back to moments in our lives and connect us with the people we were then. When collectors talk about their love of pennies, they are rarely talking about copper or zinc alone. They are talking about childhood, family, neighborhoods, and the feeling of being connected to history through something tangible. One particularly fascinating aspect of the 1981 cent is the way it straddles two eras. It is the last full year of the traditional copper composition, linking it to the long history of the Lincoln cent dating back to 1909. Yet it also stands right on the edge of modernity, with the zinc transition in 1982 marking a fundamental shift. This gives the 1981 penny a dual identity. It is both the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Collectors sense this tension, and it makes the coin more than just another date in the series. It becomes a marker of change, a line in the sand where old traditions gave way to new realities. That kind of symbolism is irresistible in the world of numismatics, where transitions and turning points always attract attention. Personal stories from collectors often highlight the unique journey of the 1981 penny. Some recall receiving them in change during their youth, and setting them aside because of their shiny brilliance. Others remember searching rolls specifically for 1981's proof varieties or hoping to spot a doubled die. In every case, the coin acts as a catalyst for curiosity and excitement. The narrative of the 1981 cent is not just written in mint records and auction catalogs, it is written in the lives of the people who encountered it. Every collector has a different story, and together these stories create a rich tapestry that elevates the coin far beyond its face value. The 1981 penny also intersects with larger economic and political narratives of the time. Inflation had eroded the purchasing power of small coins, and debates about the future of the penny were already beginning. Some argued that the cost of producing the coin outweighed its usefulness, while others insisted that the penny remained an important part of American commerce and culture. These debates still echo today, as policymakers continue to question whether the penny should remain in circulation. The 1981 cent, standing at the cusp of these conversations, becomes more than just currency. It becomes part of a national dialogue about value, tradition, and practicality. In examining the legacy of the 1981 cent, it is also essential to consider its place in the collector market over time. For decades, it was treated as just another common date, but slowly, awareness of its significance grew. The emergence of the proof varieties, the distinction between Type 1 and Type 2 mint marks, and the recognition of high-grade survivors elevated the coin's profile. Today, collectors look back and realize that what once seemed ordinary is, in fact, extraordinary. This evolution in perception is part of what makes numismatics such a dynamic field. Coins are not static. Their meanings shift as history unfolds, as markets develop, and as stories spread. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of the 1981 penny story is the way it encapsulates the human desire for discovery. People have always been drawn to the idea that hidden treasures lie all around us, waiting to be found. The 1981 cent feeds that desire perfectly. Billions exist, yet within those billions may be a handful that are truly exceptional, error coins, perfect proofs, or unique varieties. The dream of being the one to discover such a coin drives countless collectors to keep searching. It is this dream, more than any number on a price chart, that explains the enduring fascination with the penny. The connection between imagination and reality is never clearer than in stories of coins said to be worth astronomical sums. Whether or not a 1981 penny has actually sold for $103 million is almost beside the point. What matters is that people believe it could be possible, and that belief fuels excitement, conversation, and action. Legends like this give life to the market, reminding us that value is not fixed but created by passion and imagination. In this sense, the 1981 penny is more than just a coin. It is a symbol of possibility itself. That's the full part 9. Do you want me to move ahead with part 10, where I'll dig deeper into the global fascination with American coins, how the penny is viewed internationally, and why the 1981 cent resonates even beyond the borders of the United States? You said part 9, ChatGPT said. Excellent. Let's keep building your script with part 10. I'll continue in the same uninterrupted, long-form narration style, no headings or subtitles, just smooth storytelling that works as a YouTube voiceover. The fascination with the American penny, and the 1981 cent in particular, is not limited to the borders of the United States. Around the world, American coins are symbols of both economic power and cultural identity. Collectors in Europe, Asia, and beyond often view the penny not simply as small change but as an artifact of a nation whose currency dominates global trade. The Lincoln cent, with its instantly recognizable portrait, is among the most iconic of all U.S. coins, and the 1981 issue stands out because of its position at the crossroads of tradition and transition. For international collectors, owning a 1981 penny is like holding a tiny piece of American history, one that represents both the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln and the economic realities of the early 1980s. American coins have long been exported, carried abroad by travelers, military personnel, and international commerce. A 1981 penny may have jingled in the pocket of a tourist visiting Europe, or it may have been lost in the sand on a beach in Asia, only to be discovered years later by someone curious enough to pick it up. These small stories create global footprints for the coin, expanding its reach far beyond the U.S. mint that produced it. International collectors, too, contribute to its rising demand, bidding on high-grade examples in auctions and hunting for rare varieties through online marketplaces. In this way, The 1981 cent has become not just an American collectible but a global one. Part of the reason the penny resonates internationally is its design. Abraham Lincoln is a figure recognized worldwide, admired for his leadership, his commitment to freedom, and his role in preserving the Union during the Civil War. His face on the penny elevates the coin from a simple denomination to a symbol of values that resonate across cultures. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse adds another layer of universality, representing not only American history but also the ideals of democracy and equality. To hold a 1981 penny is to hold an image of these ideals, condensed into copper and struck billions of times for the people. International fascination also grows from the stories of extraordinary value. When headlines declare that a simple penny could be worth thousands, millions, or even beyond, those stories travel across borders instantly. A collector in India, a student in Germany, or a shopkeeper in Brazil may all hear the same legend of the 1981 penny valued at $103 million. Whether or not the figure reflects reality, the story itself captures imagination, and imagination is the currency that drives the global coin market. Suddenly, a coin once seen as trivial becomes a conversation piece, a dream, a symbol of possibility. This global spread of fascination strengthens demand, pushing the 1981 cent further into the spotlight. Cultural context also plays a role. Many countries have retired their smallest coins, eliminating denominations like the cent or penny from circulation. Canada, for example, discontinued its penny in 2012. In such countries, the idea that the US still produces pennies, and that older ones like the 1981 copper issue might be worth a fortune, adds an element of intrigue. It feels like a link to another time, a reminder of the days when small coins mattered. For international collectors, this makes the 1981 cent not only an American artifact but also a window into a broader story about how societies value money, tradition, and history. The internet has amplified this fascination in powerful ways. Online forums, YouTube channels, and social media groups dedicated to coin collecting include participants from around the world. In these digital spaces, a collector in California might share a discovery of a rare 1981 error, and within hours, enthusiasts in London, Tokyo, or Buenos Aires are analyzing the images, debating the value, and dreaming of finding something similar in their own collections. This instant sharing of knowledge and discovery has transformed the hobby from a local pursuit